Today we're going to talk about the ban list and what changes Konami is going to try to make to fix the game. How's it going everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the ban list once again. Last week I brought you a wish list video on what I was hoping we would get from the next ban list, and today I'm bringing you a prediction video for what I think Konami will try to do to make Yu-Gi-Oh! A better game. Now obviously that isn't all they try to do. They use the ban list as a monetary tool as well to help them sell products, but I do think they're going to see some changes being made on the list that will benefit the game slightly. Do I think it'll be a crazy list that's going to fix everything in the format? Absolutely not, but I do think it's a step in the right direction. But keep in mind, this isn't a wish list, it's going to be a prediction for what I expect to happen. I won't necessarily agree with all the changes on this list, but I am more confident that these are going to happen than any of the hits on my wishlist video. And keep in mind that the Infinite Forbidden and the NAWCQ are only about 2 weeks away, which means if we're getting a ban list in July, it's likely going to be after that event and that release of that core set. But if you're excited for a potential ban list, then make sure to smash the like button and of course subscribe to the channel. Only about 15% of my viewers are actually subscribed, and if you don't want to miss a single upload, that's the best way to do it. But with that being said, these are my ban list predictions for the July 2024 competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Format. Let's try and fix Yu-Gi-Oh! So as always, I'm going to start off by talking about the banned cards, then move on to the limits, the semis, and then finally the unlimits. Now, I am going to give you my reasoning as to why the changes are going to happen, as well as whether or not I believe the change will actually impact what the meta is going to be looking like for the future. But I'm also going to talk about a few popular cards that people have been saying they want to see on the list that I don't believe will actually change, and again give you my reasoning as to why Konami will not touch them. I also don't think that this ban list is going to be as big or impactful as a lot of other people are suggesting it's going to be. And the reason why is because of all the upcoming product releases. At the end of the day, Konami is a business and they want to sell their product. And the fact that we're getting the Infinite Forbidden releasing in just a couple of weeks, and then the Megatins coming out in probably September, October, we're expecting to see that we're going to have a lot of new cards coming into the card pool and a lot of reprints as well. And considering that the ban list will happen probably before the Megatins, and the one after that will happen after the Megatins, that's why I think we're going to see a lot of changes that are going to drastically shake up the format for the considerable future. But with that being said, let's start off with our first banned card being Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. Now look, I am always going to be a believer that this card should be banned, and I finally think that Konami actually goes about doing it this time around. The card is really unhealthy for the game, basically allowing you to turn skip your opponent. The problem is, it's not that common for it to actually happen in pretty much every deck. You really have to be playing a few key cards to make it work, like for example Crimson Dragon or even Branded Etude. But if we're going to be hitting a lot of other decks in the format and weakening them, then we also have to address Centurion, which is the deck that's really taking advantage of Calamities as much as possible right now. Shutting down your opponent's entire ability to play the game is so unhealthy, and I think of all the cards that are basically turn skip cards, this has the biggest target on its back for a ban, even ahead of Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. And it's because Calamity has multiple printings at this point, while Albion only has just the one. The next card I predict will get banned is going to be World Sea Dragon Zealantis. This is a really interesting card that's gotten better over time as we've gotten a card like Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flames, and of course Salamangreat Raging Phoenix. The combination of these three cards together allow pretty much any deck to get a very consistent and strong OTK to deal well over 8,000 damage. Now I get that banning Zealantis will hurt other strategies, but unfortunately they're going to be casualties to a bigger problem, which is going to be the Zealantis OTK with Raging Phoenix. That's just way too generic and strong, and it raises the ceiling of pretty much every single deck that could possibly play it, and for that reason I think that Zealantis, which is the main problem, should be banned. And my final prediction for a banned card in this video is going to be Snake Eye Oak. This is a really interesting hit because it's not the more common suggestion that people make when banning cards, but it really is the perfect choice in this specific format. It just makes the most amount of sense both financially and in terms of gameplay. As far as gameplay goes, you only need one copy of Snake Eye Oak in decks right now, and the reason why is because it's able to extend a little bit, recover a couple of resources from the graveyard or banish, and of course be able to summon out Flamber's Dragon directly from the deck. But as far as financially goes, they're not going to hit something like Snake Eye Ash because it just got reprinted as an OTS Ultimate Rare in OTS Pack 25, so that makes no sense at all, especially considering that we've been calling for Fenrir to get hit forever, and it just hasn't. And that's because, in my opinion, that it's an OTS Ultimate Rare. They could also ban original Sinful Spoils, but I don't think they're going to do that. If they ban OSS, then they're basically getting rid of the entire payoff of playing the Wanted or Diabellstar package, which is not something they want to do right before they likely reprint it in the Megatins in September. I also seriously doubt they hit a card like Wanted or Diabellstar because they're two highly sought after cards that are both secret rares and are begging for a reprint so players can actually take advantage of them. So it makes no sense to hit these powerful and high value cards in the format today. But then you have Snake Eye Oak, which is just a super rare. Sure, it can go up in price a little bit, but the fact that you would ban this card leads to a much more healthy gameplay and better financial situation for Konami than it otherwise would if you kept it legal. Banning Oak means you lose one card out of the Snake Eye deck while keeping all the money cards intact for potential reprints. It's also only a super rare, so it's the kind of middle of the road solution that I really expect Konami to try and do, and kind of what I expect from them going forward. Would I personally go ahead and make this change? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great hit, but I want them to be more aggressive. I just don't think it's really going to happen much more than this. But that's it for the bans in my prediction. I really only think there's going to be these 3 bans on this list, and I want there to be more, but I don't think it's going to happen just yet. Moving on to the limited list, there's a few more cards I want to talk about. And starting off with the first one, we're going to keep that theme of hitting Snake Eye cards by limiting Snake Eye's Flamber's Dragon to 1. I think Flamber's Dragon is an amazing card, and it was super underestimated when we first got into the format and Yugioh got released. But the card is absolutely incredible, and you might be saying, putting Snake Eye Flamber's Dragon to 1 doesn't really do anything, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Sure, some decks that are playing Snake Eye variants are playing it only at 1 copy, like for example Snake Eye Fire King, but a pure Snake Eye deck really wants to use it at 2 copies. It can be summoned off the effect of Snake Eye Ash or Oak, but it can also be placed in the spell and trap zone off of the effect of Divine Temple, which means if you're interrupted, you can always summon it back to your side of the field. And players are also using it with another level 8 monster to get them access to Hope Harbinger to get them a spell negate, which can be really good. But if it's under the material of Hope Harbinger, sending it to the graveyard won't activate the effect to bring back 2 level 1 fires, so they lose a lot of recovery. Now you might be saying that this hit isn't that impactful, and honestly, you're kind of right. Most decks will want to play 2 copies, but some are fine playing just the 1. But in general, it's a really solid middle of the road hit, which is what I expect from Konami in the first place. It's also a secret rare, sure, just like Diabellstar and Wanted, and while I don't believe that we're hitting those cards in the slightest on this list, I do believe that that's because those cards are much more expensive and sought after, while Flamber's Dragon is sought after but not as high of a money card for Konami. And Flamber's Dragon to 1 is actually the final direct hit to Snake Eye that I'm predicting on this list, which is crazy considering that that deck is running around dominating the meta right now, and only 2 hits, that doesn't seem very impactful at all. But that's just what I expect Konami to do, just like I expect them to hit this next card being Skill Drain. I think Skill Drain to 1 is a must happen. Pretty much every single floodgate in the game is either banned or limited to 1 copy, and for some reason, Skill Drain is still at 3. I thought it was a mistake to bring it unlimited off the ban list a couple years ago, and I think it's been a mistake to keep it at 3 copies ever since. This card should be at 1 or banned. It was also reprinted in Rarity Collection 2, and considering that was one of my factors to not hitting certain cards, I may seem a bit disingenuous here. But that's because I'm not actually banning Skill Drain, it also wasn't a highly sought after reprint in that set. So I think Skill Drain to 1 copy, even after the recent reprint, makes a good amount of sense. Moving on, I'm going to keep on saying it, but Heavy Storm to 1 should be a guaranteed move that Konami makes. It's already at 1 copy in the OCG, and it is seeing some play in side decks, but that's really it. It's not a dominant meta threat by any means. At the best case, it's a better Harpy's Feather Duster, and at the worst case, it's a worse version of Harpy's Feather Duster. And honestly, I think that variance there is fine to bring it back. At best case, it's a side deck card, and Konami has been slowly but surely releasing cards off the ban list that were once DM staples. We saw with Change of Heart and with Snatch Steal, and I think that Heavy Storm is the next one to come off the list. Prank Kids Meow Meow Moo should also be brought back off the list. Prank Kids are going to do absolutely nothing even with Meow Meow Moo brought off the list. The deck just can't compete with the game today. Look at it. Do you really expect that a copy of Battle and Butler will actually be able to compare with a Fiendsmith combo? There's no chance at all. Bring back Meow Meow Moo. This next card though paid for the sins of Crystron Halki Fibrax, and that's going to be Glow Up Bulb. Gub should come back to the game at 1 copy, and I think eventually down the line we can probably see it go back to 3 copies just like the OCG has it. The card is insanely strong. As a normal summon, it gets you a free Link 2 monster without using any other resources from your hand, which is really powerful. But it's not going to be as impactful unless you pair it with other cards. Its real power comes out when you can send it to the graveyard as part of your regular combo. If you can do that, you can extend with it, which can be very scary. Considering the OCG has it at 3 copies without an errata, I definitely think we can have it here at 1 copy without it being that big of a deal. Speaking of erratas, Summon Sorceress got one announced 3 or 4 months ago, and since then it's been taken off the OCG's ban list and put to 1 copy. The card itself is very good, and whenever we get an errata in the OCG, it does take a little bit of time, but we eventually get that card into the TCG too. The card being errated is a pretty good change. It's still a solid card that's going to see some play, but it's not going to be a meta warping super threat like it was back before it was banned. But moving on to our semi-limited section, I like the semi-list a lot. I think it's a really cool tool to address consistency hits, which I believe are pretty good in terms of addressing certain cards, but a lot of people disagree with that. That being said, the first card I want to hit on the semi-limited list is going to be Sangen Summoning, the field spell for Tenpai Dragon. This card is the reason why that deck is so powerful. The card obviously protects the Tenpai players from being affected by anything during their main phase 1, which is a huge deal to allow them to break boards very easily and then get into powerful pushes to OTK their opponents. It's not that significant of a hit, and that's because the deck is still going to be receiving support in both the Infinite Forbidden and in the new set Rage of the Abyss, which is coming out I believe in September or October for us in the TCG. But we do want to have at least a small consistency hit to the deck to really reduce what it can do as often as possible. Now I really thought about hitting this next card a bit more severely, but I'm pretty happy with it at 2 copies, and that's going to be Ostinato. Ostinato is essentially the branded fusion for the Melodious archetype, and if it resolves, it gives a player so much card advantage and the ability to negate so many cards. It gets them Appaloosa, potentially SP Little Knight, Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, and so on, all without even using their normal summon. Considering that the engine is being splashed into so many different decks, it does make sense that they hit this card at least a little bit. And I was considering putting it to 1 copy, but with the new Melodious support, it just didn't feel right to outright limit their best card in the strategy. But my final card on the semi-limited list is going to be Magispector Unicorn Kirin. Kirin is a card that has been on the ban list for a long time, and it finally got released to 1 copy, and it did nothing. It did nothing in Pendulum Piles, and it did almost nothing in Magispector decks. Now sure, it definitely has a home in those strategies, but it's not having an impact on the actual meta. And I think Konami will do the thing they love to do, which is going to be to ban a card, then put it to 1, then to 2, and then finally unlimit it on the next list. I think we're heading that way with Kirin in this specific format. And finally, for my unlimited section, we are talking about only 2 cards, starting off with Armageddon Knight. Speaking of what Konami loves to do by moving cards from 1 to 2 to 3, Armageddon Knight is the exact example that I'm talking about. It was at 1, now it's at 2 copies on the last ban list, it's done absolutely nothing, and now they're going to move it to 3 copies. It just makes so much sense. And my last unlimit is going to be Ib, the World Chalice Justiciar. This is another card that I believe could easily come off the list to 3 copies. I thought that when it first got limited to 1, that it was going to actually see a good amount of play because the engine, the World Chalice engine, is really good. But it requires a lot of bricks, and I think we moved past that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Today. When it was actually going to be dominant and really good in the game, it was banned for that entire time. And since then, the game's just moved past it, and it's no longer going to be as impactful. And really, do you want to play 2 copies of Ib? No, you're going to play 1. So you either play 1 or you play 3. I don't see any reason to keep it at 2 copies, so Konami will just bring it right away to 3 copies. It just makes so much sense. But that's going to be it for my changes on the ban list. I think it's a pretty good amount of changes that we're going to see. It's 14 moves, which is pretty consistent with what I expect Konami to actually do on the lists going forward, but it's not going to be a completely game-changing list because that's not what Konami's about right now. They want to try and reprint the cards that are dominating the format, give everyone access to them to play the decks, and then they're going to hit them more significantly after the fact. Now, obviously, there are a lot of cards I could have discussed banning or limiting that I actually didn't do, and you guys deserve an explanation as to why I don't think Konami will hit these cards. Starting off with the most controversial one of them all being Max C. Max C is a card that can never come off the ban list in my opinion. The card is unhealthy, it is not well designed at all, but on top of that, we're also getting a new Max C in Mulcharmy Pirellia, which is releasing in the Infinite Forbidden. Why would Konami unban Max C and then release another Max C light card to the format? It just doesn't make any sense. I also think that Tier Limit Kid Kalos to 1 would be really fun, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. I think they're going to do the same thing with kits as they did with IB, and they're only going to release it back to the game after it's been power crept out of existence. Perform Age Plush Flyer got an errata just like Summon Sorceress did, but why am I keeping it on the ban list? Well, it's because Plush Flyer's errata only came about 3 to 4 weeks ago, while Summon Sorceress got its errata 3 to 4 months ago, which means it's just going to be a matter of time until we get it back. I just don't think it's going to be happening on this upcoming ban list that we get Plush Flyer back to 1. I would love it if Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal, got banned, but I just don't expect it to happen. It's a card that right now I'd argue is better than Laval Volchain, which is a banned card right now. The card is insanely strong and it's easily made with so many different decks, especially now that we have the Fiendsmith cards. But I don't think it moves from its limited status just yet. I think we have to see it dominate a format with the Fiendsmith cards before Konami decides to finally give it the axe. I also don't think they're going to hit Albion the Sanctifier Dragon, which will make a lot of you very upset, I'm sure of it. But just think about it from a financial perspective in terms of what Konami will want to do. The Megatons are reprinting cards from Syac. The two best cards from Cyberstorm Axis are going to be Quem and Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. These two cards are some of the most valuable cards in the branded strategy for their ability to just shut down the opponent's entire game plan. If you get rid of Albion, you're going to reduce the price of Quem and you're going to reduce the price of the Megatons that people are expecting to pull from their packs. I don't see a world where they actually ban Albion the Sanctifier Dragon until after the Megatons. That's if they decide to include it in the set in the first place. Also, I do believe that the closer we get to the Megatons without a ban list, the more likely it is that Albion does get hit. So if we're in August by the time you're watching this video and then we get the ban list, then yeah, Albion would definitely be on my predictions for it to get hit, but in July, I don't think so. The same kind of goes for Branded Fusion, but for a different reason. Branded Fusion just got its reprint as a secret rare accessible printing in Battles of Legend Terminal Revenge, which is less than a month old. I do believe that as we go 2-3 months in the future, we're going to see Branded Fusion get hit for consistency reasons to either 2 or 1 copy, and I think that hit is going to be well warranted. Branded's been a really solid deck for the better part of 2-3 years now, so I think it makes a lot of sense to finally hit that card at least a little bit. And the last 2 cards that people think will get hit that I don't believe will change are going to be part of Rarity Collection 2, which I think we can all agree was a failed set. It was just way too expensive, the cards inside of it weren't good enough, and it just really sucks that vendors bought a lot of this product and now can't sell it because the impact of the set isn't good enough. The first card I want to talk about is going to be Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. If they decide to ban Appaloosa right now while there's so much Rarity Collection 2 sitting on the shelves, it's never going to sell. I think eventually it will get hit, but not on this particular list. The same goes for IP Masquerena, another one of the chase cards in Rarity Collection 2. It finally is accessible to absolutely everyone, and I'm thrilled about that. The problem is there just isn't enough value in Rarity Collection 2 to outright ban IP Masquerena and Appaloosa as well. If they do that, the set will never sell and it'll just sit on shelves forever. Just like Appaloosa though, after a bit of time, once Rarity 2 has finished selling, I think we're going to see bans to both IP and Appaloosa, which is not what I want to happen, but it is a prediction that I am going to be making in the future. But those are just my thoughts and predictions on what's going to happen for the upcoming ban list as far as Konami's perspective. Let me know down in the comments if 1, you agree with what I'm saying and why, and 2, did I miss any cards that you think Konami will actually hit? Remember, this is just my predictions on what I think Konami will do. If you want to see my wish list, check out the video in the cards. Leave a like if you enjoyed the discussion, and of course subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Only about 15% of my viewers are subscribed, and you may think that you already are because you're getting recommended my videos, but just double check just in case. Shout out to my channel members for going above and beyond to support the channel, and check me out on Twitter and join the Discord server, both are linked in the description. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.